I did in fact read 14 books. I loved this book. It was so good. And then the second thing that bothers me, they're like little tiny islands that they just, no, you're supposed to be trusting me. Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel and welcome back to another video. Today we are doing my March reading wrap up. So I never got around to doing my February wrap up. I was determined to film this month. First things first, we need to go and get a drink, get comfy, and then we'll start running through the books because there's quite a few to get through. So we're all settled. I have my coffee, which is very good. And I also have my phone so I can open up my Goodreads just to remind myself of the books. I did in fact read 14 books in March, which I think is probably one of my best reading months ever, to be honest. I read 11 books in February and I thought that was really good for me. I just seem to be on a reading roll at the minute. I'm really enjoying everything that I pick and it's just making it really easy to speed through my TBR and then also read extra. So the first book that I read in March was Daggermouth by H.M. Wolfe. This was the prompt, a book you've heard a lot about, which is one of my recurring monthly prompts, and I loved this book. It was so good. It was an easy 5-star rating. It's dystopian fantasy romance. It's in a post-apocalyptic world and the world is set in rings. So there's I think there are other cities, but this main one section is the focus of this story, and the elite live in the centre, and the further out in the rings you get, the poorer you are. The elite are also masked. Nobody is allowed to see their faces. And the main story centres around quite a few characters, to be honest, but we have Sade. She's a Daggermouth. A Daggermouth is basically a contract killer, and she gets a contract to kill Grayson, who is the general's son, so the leader's son, the bad guy's son. She thinks he's a bad guy. He's maybe not so much as a bad guy as first believed, but they hate each other. They cannot stand each other. And of course it's enemies to lovers, my favourite trope. But the reason I gave this book 5 stars is just because it made me feel everything. My emotions were up and down, up and down. It was a roller coaster. I actually filmed a TikTok where I filmed my reaction, I think for the last half hour, 45 minutes of the book, and I'm laughing and crying and such a good ending, and I cannot wait for the second book. I think it's just a duology, but the next book isn't out until 2027, I believe, so there is a bit of a wait. The ending is such a cliffhanger. Shouldn't be allowed to do that. Should not be allowed to do that. Another thing that I really loved about the book is the feminine rage. The world that this is set in is so patriarchal, so anti-women, and just the way the female characters in this book fight back just made me feel with them, you know. I'm quite passionate about women's rights, so the storyline was just hit the nail on the head for me, and I just felt everything with the women in the story. So book number 2 of March, I think this prompt was continuing a series I think that's the prompt that it was for. Again, that's one of my recurring monthly prompts. And I read Caught Up, which is book 3 in the Windy City series. And at this point, it was my favourite in the series. Absolutely love Miller. I loved Miller more than I loved Kai, to be honest. She's just... she's exactly who I want to be when I grow up. She just says what she thinks. She doesn't care. And I love that because it's the complete opposite of my own personal character. It's what I wish I could be. I'm far too shy and reserved. We also got to see Kai's brother, Asaya, in this book, and Miller's dad, Monty, and their little group is just my favourite thing in this series. Obviously, I love the found family of the 5 main couples, but just that little family group is just everything. I love it. I love it so much, and I love Monty. I'm just checking what I put in my Goodreads review because it feels like ages ago now that I read it, but the banter, the tension was so good. I love that Miller was the one throwing out all the banter and all the chat up lines. Although Kai did give as good as he got, it made me feel all of the emotions. I was laughing, crying. I really do love the Windy City series. The next book I chose to read was A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson. This was one of my library books for the month. I always pick 2 library books. This was one of them, and I liked it. I didn't dislike it. It kept me engaged. I was interested in how the story was progressing. It's just not a story that's going to stick with me forever. So it's told by one of Dracula's brides. She's already killed Dracula. At this point, at the beginning of the book, you know that she's murdered Dracula, and she's basically writing to Dracula in like a diary format, talking about their life from when he first turned her into a vampire, because it's vampires, and their life, who else they meet along the way, and how they get to the point of killing him. That's the entire story. I think it's supposed to be a love story. I didn't really feel the love between the characters. It's obviously a very strange dynamic with it being vampires who've been alive for centuries, but an enjoyable read. I gave it 3 stars, and if you like gothic romance vibes, I think it will be a really good book for you. And I've just realised I never said how many stars I gave Caught Up. I gave Caught Up 5 stars. That was a 5-star romance read for me. I need to keep remembering to drink my coffee so it doesn't go cold. It always goes cold when I'm filming. The next book I read, I can't remember what number we're up to. Is it 4? Book number 4 was my second library book of the month, and it was How to Be a Wallflower by Eloise James. It's a historical romance, specifically Regency romance, and I have read a lot of Eloise James books and I've enjoyed them all. I enjoyed this one. Obviously, it's nothing deep. It's just a nice, fun romance in a historical setting. I actually can't remember what the characters are even called now, but the FMC, I did like her character, to be honest. She was a business owner, actually, so it was obviously very unusual for a woman to be a business owner back then. And then the MMC is an American. They were not seen as accepted in society as much, a bit brash, I suppose Americans were back then, seen as back then. But they have a chance meeting in a costume shop. I'm sure they make costumes for plays. So he's looking to buy this business and move it over to America. The proprietor of the shop is like having a meltdown when our FMC turns up because she doesn't want to move to America. So the FMC says, well, I'll buy the shop instead. And obviously, I should really find out what the characters' names are. But when the MMC turns up and finds out that the shop has been bought out underneath him, he's not happy. So it does start out a little bit, they're not on the best of terms, but it's not enemies to lovers, really. They don't dislike each other enough to class it as that. But obviously their relationship develops. I do feel like the book could have been a lot shorter than what it was. They were pretty much happily together by the middle of the book, and I was thinking for quite a long time, like, something is going to go wrong, but what is it going to be? And it wasn't until the very end that his ex-fiancée turns up and there's a whole palaver. But It was an enjoyable read. Number 5 was The Cruel Prince by Holly Black. This is book 1 in, I'm just checking what it's called, the Folk of the Air series. So the prompt for this was, I think this was my 26 for 2026, another recurring monthly prompt to try and keep on top of that. I will actually put my 26 for 2026 on the screen with the ones I've read ticked off, so you can see how I'm progressing with that. I've just realised again, I forgot to say how many stars I gave the previous book, How to Be a Wallflower. That was 3 stars. Back to The Cruel Prince. I enjoyed this book. I found, ooh, nearly dropped that. I found it a bit unbelievable what the FMC manages to achieve. I mean, she's only 17, but am I just being ageist? I don't know. I really enjoyed this story. It had loads of twists and turns. The plot was engaging. Jude at FMC is a mortal living in the Fey lands, and she is at school. Don't know if they call it school, but we'll say school. She's at school, and the prince, one of the princes, Cardan, is in her lessons and he cannot stand her. The book has a court setting. There's a lot of political intrigue. The king is aging. He's almost at the end of his life. So all of the princes and princesses are vying for the crown, basically vying for the throne, and Jude ends up involved in the process of who is going to be king next, or queen. It is a YA romance, and it's also enemies to lovers. I do find it slightly unbelievable what our FMC manages to pull off in the book. That's the only issue I had with it. And also there's a lot of description because all of the Fae look different. They don't all look the same. They've all got different coloured skins, different coloured hairs, different coloured features. Cardan has a tail. I just couldn't keep track of what anyone or anything looked like because there was too much describing for me. There was too much describing to the point where I just couldn't remember any of it, and I didn't know what the world was looking like or what the people were looking like. But I enjoyed the story anyway, and I did give it 3 stars. My 6th book of the month was Belladonna, and this was my spin the wheel book, so it was from my physical TBR, and it's been on my shelf for so long, and once I read it, I can't believe I left it that long because I really enjoyed this book. It's a gothic setting and it's a fantasy romance. So our FMC, I'm going to have to look what her name is, Signa. Our FMC is called Signa, and from the very beginning, the prologue just gripped me straight away because Signa is a baby and she's at a party and everyone at the party dies. So death turns up, but he can't take her. She should die, but he can't take her. She stays alive. And then it turns out that this is like some kind of power for her because at various points throughout her life, he's tried to take her. There should have been circumstances where she died and he wasn't able to take her to the next side, basically. So she can't die. That's her power, and she can also see spirits. Where the book starts, she's living with an aunt who isn't very nice. Is it a spoiler to say her aunt dies? Her aunt dies, and she ends up moving to some other distant family where the mother wife has died and the daughter is gravely ill. They don't know why. They think it's the same thing that the mother had. And using her powers and her ability to see spirits, she needs to solve the mystery to stop the daughter from dying, basically. There's a bit of a love triangle in this book. There's also enemies to lovers. And then, of course, the murder mystery element. I just really enjoyed it. It kept me gripped, but not in a stressful way, because you know I don't like a thriller or like a full-on mystery because it just gives me anxiety. I need to know what's going on, but it wasn't full-on like that. I could enjoy it without feeling stressed about not knowing all the answers. I did give this book 5 stars. It's a series, so I'm looking forward to continuing it. The book 2 in the series is Foxglove, and that is on my reading list for this month, for April, so very excited and hopeful that that is another 5-star read. So those were all of my 6 books on my reading list, my TBR for the month. So from this point onwards, I was just mood reading, just deciding what I felt like and what I wanted to read. And I decided to continue with the Windy City series. So the next book in the series was Play Along. The Windy City series is by Liz Tomford, by the way. I've not been very good at saying who writes all of this book, but I've put all the information on the screen. So Play Along by Liz Tomford. This is Asiah's story, Kai's brother. I loved it. I loved it so much. I didn't think Kai and Miller's story could be beat, but I think Asiah and Kennedy's story, I love it even more. There's just something about Asiah, I don't know, he's got like the perfect balance of being masterful, like he tells her what to do when he needs to, but he also is not unwilling to beg. I don't even know what noise I just made then. I love this book so much. I loved Asiah so much. The banter between the characters was obviously brilliant. It always is in Liz Tomford book. It's a fake marriage trope. So in the end of Caught Up, it turns out that Asiah and Kennedy end up getting married in Vegas. So that's where this book starts, and they're going to get it annulled. They're going to end it all. It was a mistake. But Kennedy finds out that if she does that, she can't keep her job, and if she can't keep her job, she is no longer in the running for her dream job. So her and Asiah agree to stay married, have a fake marriage. Everything goes from there. So Asiah wants the marriage to be real. He's loved Kennedy for years, and he sees this as his opportunity to convince her that they should give it a real go. But Kennedy is not having any of it. She's got a lot of issues with her family, like relationship wise, so she doesn't trust very easily. She's convinced that Asiah is only after her because he can't have her. I really loved their story. We get to see loads more of Monty and Miller and Kai in this book, and there is a part in the book where Kai does a speech, and oh my goodness, I was crying all the way through that speech. Again, I felt all the emotions, and that is what I want from a book. I need the book to make me feel what they are feeling, so that is why I gave it a 5-star. I haven't read a huge amount of sports romance, but this is my favourite series, sports romance series so far, and that is why for my next read I continued with the series and I read the next book, which is Rio's book, and it is Rewind It Back. This is a second chance romance. Hallie, I don't know how to pronounce her name. I'm gonna go with Hallie for the rest of this video. He ends up meeting back up with Hallie, who was his first big relationship. He loved her for years. They were going to be together forever, and something happened and they separated, and he's never forgiven her, and she's also never forgiven him for how things worked out either. This book wasn't my favourite in the series for a couple of reasons. Number one, I felt like Rio's character didn't fully match up with the Rio we've known throughout the series. I know it's explained that he puts a lot of it on. He exaggerates his character and his like failure in love persona to cover the fact that he thinks he's never going to find his real love because he's already had it. I get that, but they just didn't quite match up for me. And also another thing was the beginning of the story, it's like they hate each other for what happened back in the day. Like, he is angry with her, he can never forgive her, but after one conversation he's literally like, oh no, okay, I do forgive her and I want to get back together and this is going to work this time. Like, it's just a switch and the hate is gone, which just felt a bit too easy for me. There was no process there. But apart from those two things, I still enjoyed the book. It's still got all the found family in. We got to see more of the big found family again, because in the previous 2 books it was more focused on the smaller found family with the brothers and then Monty, Miller, Kennedy, but this feels like we were back more to the main 5 couples, and the found family is the thing that I love the most about the Windy City series. It's the found family vibes that make you sad that it's all over, and that's how I felt at the end of the book. I was sad that I was just going to have to say goodbye to these characters that feel like friends now. There was an epilogue at the end of the book. I enjoyed that. Again, I do feel like maybe we could have had a bit more. Like the epilogue at the end of The Right Move, book 2, I felt like that was a bigger epilogue than we got in this book, and this was the last one. But either way, really enjoyed it. Of course it made me cry. I'm an emotional reader. I cry at many things. I gave the book 3 stars, which is the same rating that I gave Mile High. So in the series, Mile High and Rewind It Back, I gave 3 stars. The Right Move, I gave 4 stars. And then both Caught Up and Play Along were 5-star reads for me. But the series, the overall series is a 5-star series. So once I'd finished that, I thought, well, I'm almost at the end. I may as well read the spin-off of the Windy City series, which of course is In Her Own League. This follows Monty, who is Miller's dad, Kai's father-in-law, the coach of the baseball team, father figure. I loved him in both Caught Up and in Play Along, so I was very excited to get to his story. He's an older MMC, which as an older person myself, so my camera battery just died on me then, and I just had to put it back on charge. I do not remember what I was saying, but we were up to In Her Own League, which is Monty's, may have already said this, I do apologise, but it's his story and it's him and Reese. I loved this story. I loved them as a couple. I loved their dynamic. I loved the banter, all of it. One thing I had an issue with is how they went about the whole plus size thing. 2 things bothered me. One, I don't feel like, I have never read a book with plus size representation that I feel has worked for me personally, because there is one thing that is always the case in a plus size book, and that is that she is appropriately plus sized. And by this I mean that she's got thick thighs, hips, big boobs, maybe a little bit of a belly, but it's still reasonably flat, because that would be unattractive otherwise. It just bothers me that they say plus size, but it's never really plus size in my opinion. And then the second thing that bothers me is that nobody mentions, obviously they describe her as plus size, but the fact that she's plus size is not an issue for anyone, which is fair enough. It shouldn't be in the real world. It is, but it shouldn't be. And that wouldn't be so much of a problem if it wasn't for the storyline in book 1 of the Windy City series, where Stevie is absolutely ripped to bits by the media because she's curvy. Only curvy. Not full plus size, just a bit curvy. So her body is ripped apart by the media, but then we've got a full plus size woman who's a size, I think it says 16 to 18, but this is the US, so in UK sizes that's 18 to 20. That's not a small woman, and nobody mentions her size. In fact, men comment on her attractiveness. No one rips her apart for her size, which, like I say, is how it should be. That is how the world should be, but that's not how the world is, and it's not even how the world is in this book world because of what happened with Stevie. But apart from that, I liked the book. All of those issues bothered me enough that I didn't give it as high a star rating. I only gave it, I think, 3 stars. But I was happy to be back in the Windy City world, specifically with the small group of Monty, Miller, Kai, Isaiah, Kennedy, and now Reese as well. And Max, of course, not forgetting Max. So yes, back with my favourite little family in the Windy City series. I enjoyed it. There's a point in the book where all the couples are there, but they're only mentioned in passing. So it basically says like some of Kai and Isaiah's other friends that are sports players. It doesn't even mention them by name. And I just wanted a little bit more because it was a chance to see them all again. But can't actually even remember what the main storyline is. It's a bit enemies to lovers. They don't get on to start off with. Reese is now running the baseball team that Monty is the coach of. So he thinks she's going to come along and change everything. And she thinks he's getting an easy ride, and the business has been giving him anything he wants. So that is why they clash, but they pretty much straight away end up being friends, more than friends. Then the main storyline is forbidden romance, I would say, because he's her employee, she's his employer, so they can't be together. But I like the story. It's a good love story. Liz Tom Ford does banter, tension very well, and it's good. So after In Her Own League, I moved on to book 2 in the Folk of the Air series. So I'd read book 1 earlier in the month, and book 2 was The Wicked King. I enjoyed this more than book 1 because I already knew Jude as a character, and because of the things she's went through, it felt less unbelievable that she as a 17-year-old was achieving or doing all of the things that she was doing. I liked the romance between the two characters. That was really good. And then all the political intrigue and court setting. I really love that in a fantasy book. I found it quite fast-paced. They are not long books. They're quite easy reads. And I really enjoyed how the story was progressing in this trilogy. One thing I will say is Cardan. I found his redemption arc a little bit short. We go from hating him because he's absolutely awful. He says he's sorry and we forgive him, and then it's all okay. I didn't feel like there was a very big redemption arc, but I enjoyed the vibes of the book and I gave it a 4-star. Really enjoying this series, which is why after reading that I moved on to book 3 in the trilogy, which is The Queen of Nothing. And again, I gave this another 4 stars. This series is by Holly Black, by the way. I'm really doing not very well at giving you all the details in this video today, am I? But book 3, I gave it 4 stars. I loved how the story all came together in this one. There was lots of twists and turns. It keeps you intrigued all the way through. Again, I loved the dynamic between our FMC and MMC, although he was very easily forgiven for his past mistakes. I do like their banter. I really enjoyed the ending and how everything... I won't go into too many details because I don't like to give spoilers, but I enjoyed the Feywild. I did struggle with the descriptions of the Feywild all through the series. There was just too much description and I didn't really keep track of it. Like there was, all through the book they talked about this something root, I can't remember what it's called, that turned into a horse. And it was only in the last book that I kind of got that it was a flower. They were like picking this flower and it was turning into the horses. And even though they said that in the previous books, with the over description of everything, I didn't pick up on certain things. And again, in my mind, it keeps talking about how in the Feywild they're like islands or small islands, and in my head these islands are tiny because they walk from island to island. So in my mind they're like little tiny islands that they just step from one another, and I don't know whether that was an issue with the describing or that was an issue with my own brain. But anyway, I do recommend the series, and there are a couple of other books by Holly Black that are set in the same world, and I think I'm going to give those a read as well. After those, I read Alchemy of Secrets by Stephanie Garber. This was my least favourite book of the month. I gave it 2 stars, and it should have been good. The setting was really good. It's like an urban fantasy, so it's set in a modern world, but magic is hidden, and if you know where to look, you can find magic and find magical places. So this girl has learned all about magic and she's been looking for signs of it all her life, and she ends up finding some, but then she's told she's only got 24 hours to live unless she does this one thing. So the book is her trying to do this one thing so she does not die. Her sister's missing. It's in Hollywood, so you get a lot of Hollywood, old Hollywood 1930s vibes, and it's all described beautifully. My only issue is I felt zero emotion from this book whatsoever. She's not scared, worried, panicked. She doesn't care about her sister. All she cares about is getting the answers, like, to the mystery. And she just keeps going and going, and there's just no feeling from her whatsoever. And also, she's so trusting of everyone. Like, one person will come up to her and say, no, trust me, come with me. And she's like, okay. And then she goes with them. And then there's someone else and they're like, no, don't trust them, trust me. So then she does that. And then the other person comes back and goes, no. you're supposed to be trusting me. So she's like, okay. And then she'll go and trust him. And it was a bit ridiculous. Things happened in the book, like life or death things, and I just felt nothing. So that's why I gave it 2 stars. It also doesn't really feel like it had a proper ending. I don't know whether it's going to be a series because there was just some unanswered questions at the end that I felt like there could be more books. But if there are more books, I won't be continuing with them. We're almost at the end. We have 2 more books. This has been a really long wrap up, I know. But I then read book 2 in the Compelling Fate saga, which is A Promise So Bold and Broken. This is by Sophia St. Germain. And I really enjoyed book 1 in the series. This second book, it took me a little while to get into this book. About the first 20%, I felt like it might be my fault because of the gap between books and I couldn't fully remember what had happened, but it just felt like I was on catch up, trying to remember what was going on. But once I was in to it, it was really good once again. This book felt, if you've watched House of Dragon, the Game of Thrones series, this book felt like series 2 of House of Dragon because it felt like it was building up, but then we got to the end and nothing fully is kicking off yet. So I feel like that's going to happen in the next book. This book felt like we were being set up for what comes next rather than a full story arc of its own. Like book 1 felt like it had a full story arc. This was more like the beginning of a story, I should say. But I did still really enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the love story in this as much as in book 1. The love in book 1, it just felt more hard-earned than the love in this. But excited to continue with the series, and I'm hopefully going to be reading book 3 this month. I gave this one 3 stars. And then my final book for this month that I read was Nightshade by Autumn Woods. I had no prior knowledge of what this story was about. Originally, I'd thought it was a fantasy from looking at the cover, but no, it's not a fantasy. It's a dark academia romance, bit of a mystery plot. I absolutely inhaled this book. I read it in probably 24 hours. I just couldn't put it down, and it was because of the banter between our FMC and MMC. It was from the very first couple of pages where they meet so good that I just had to keep reading. Our FMC, Ophelia, both of her parents are dead. They died in suspicious circumstances, so she is determined to uncover what happened and who's responsible for their death. And she knows that this certain family is involved, and of course that is the family of our MMC. I really liked the mental health representation in this book. I thought they did that really well. Our MMC does not get on with his dad, who is the bad guy of the story, so he is dealing with his bad relationship with his dad. His mum has addiction issues, and then also he has a lot of sisters that he has basically helped raise because of the situation that they're in. And he is at this university where they meet. Ophelia is there because 1, she's trying to solve the mystery, and 2, it's the only school that's accepted her because of the depression she fell into after she lost her parents. So they've met at the university. She doesn't want to get involved with him because she knows his family, but he is utterly intrigued by her. And like I say, the banter is amazing, but he's obsessed and she's into him but not wanting to be into him. It's so good. They send emails to each other throughout the book and they're just so funny. I did listen to some of this as an audiobook because I had to work and I didn't want to put it down, but I had to. So that's why I listened to some of the audiobook whilst I was working, and the audiobook was so good as well. I loved it. This school is the craziest school ever in the world. They're like mafia kids. People are dying. People have got guns. I don't know what kind of school it is. It's a crazy one, but I enjoyed the book. My only worry about book 2, because it is part of a series, is that we're not going to get the same banter because they're not at the beginning of their relationship anymore. So I just don't know whether I'm going to enjoy book 2 as much as book 1, but I hope that all the banter's still there, and I hope that I love it as much as I did this one, because this was an easy 5-star read for me. I inhaled it. It was so good. So there we have it. All 14 books that I read in the month of March. I have already shared my TBR video for April, so there's 6 books on my TBR for April. I've read 3 of the books on that TBR so far, so I've got 3 more to go, and I've also read 2 books actually that weren't on my TBR already, so I don't think I'm going to get through as many books as I did last month, but we shall see. I really hope that you've enjoyed today's video. I do know that when I start waffling on, I can go off in a tangent, and sometimes I don't make any sense, and sometimes I miss things out. So if I didn't say who the author was for certain books, I'm sorry, but I will put it all on the screen so all the information is there. If you enjoyed my waffling, however, I would love if you could like and subscribe. It will really help me. I finally hit 1,000 subscribers last week, so I am very excited about that. I just need to continue with posting consistently so I get my views up. So thank you for watching it if you've made it to the end. I will be back with another video very soon, probably a home video next. Maybe I'm thinking about doing some spring cleaning. I don't think I'm going to get a full spring clean done in my house this year, but I do want to try and do at least a couple of rooms. So I'm thinking next video might be a spring cleaning video. But I will see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye.